All right, we're back at the North Gauteng High Court this morning where the trial of those accused of murdering former Bafana captain and goalkeeper Senzo Meyiwa continues this entire week. Meyiwa's long-term friend, Silindelo Madlala, has been cross-examined on the stand by the defense. eNCA Silindelo Masikane has been tracking developments for us and joins us now for an update. Good morning to you, Slee. Just take us through some of the highlights on Thursday.
Well, we saw Advocate Zandile Mshololo wrapping up her cross-examination of Silindelo Madlala, but not before putting questions to him pertaining to that infamous docket 375. That's the second docket in this matter that accuses those who were in the house of having a case to answer to. But before we got there, in fact, she revealed for the first time the post-mortem report that details the gunshot wounds that Senzo Meyiwa suffered. And according to that report, Meyiwa suffered a close contact bullet wound, meaning that a close contact entrance bullet wound, rather, meaning that whoever shot Senzo Meyiwa was standing in front of him. They were at very close range, and that the bullet actually went through the front and exited through his back. And so she put that post-mortem report before the court and cross-examining Madlala on it, saying that it doesn't collaborate, or it doesn't, match up with his story in terms of who had the gun, in terms of the two alleged intruders who made their way into the house. Because according to Madlala's version, the first intruder had a gun, and that particular intruder was being assaulted or beaten by Kelukumalo, Zandi, as well as their mother, while Senzo Meyiwa had the second intruder pinned against the wall. And so Madlala saying that, look, I don't know what that means, but all I know is that the first intruder is the one that had a gun. And at some point we saw Mshololo then saying, you know what, you are lying before this court. You have an agenda because you know of the existence of the second docket, and essentially what you're trying to do with your testimony is protect yourself and anybody else who was in that house from the court actually finding out the truth about what happened, because she's saying his version of events simply is not consistent with the evidence before the court so far. Let's take a listen.
Mr. Madlala, are you testifying with an intent that your testimony should result in you not being charged?
Unikeza ufakazi ubheke ukuthi ke ufakazi bakho bizawugcina isinqumo sokuthi wena ke ungathweswa icala.
Ufakazi engimnikeza la akusikho lokho. If kuDumelo wrong naye uzoyejele. Angekho umuntu engimprotecta at all.
The testimony that I'm giving here is not about that. If it's Dumelo that is wrong, he has to go to prison. So there's no one that I'm protecting.
Please.
And Slee, as you mentioned there, I mean, the infamous second docket seemingly rearing its head again.
Certainly so. I think it's going to dominate much of this trial when it comes to the defense trying to poke holes in the state's case, saying that docket 375 has a completely different version of events in terms of what happened. And according to Silindelo Madlala, he says that investigators of that docket have ulterior motives. He says they're pushing an agenda, and that the entire docket in itself is a lie. Let's just take a listen to some accusations he's made against one of the investigators of docket 375.
Any cross-examination based on Exhibit C, it's of no force and effect because Exhibit C has got no status. A witness cannot be cross-examined on something that has got no status. My Lord, that is the crux of our objection, and we request, my Lord, that we should perhaps not dwell any further on Exhibit C and rather move along, because as we mentioned, my Lord, that will be an utter waste of court's time, as Exhibit C has got no status at all.
And what can be expected in court today, Slee?
Well, what we can expect is the re-examination of the state. You've heard from that sound clip. That is State Prosecutor George Baloyi. In fact, in that sound clip, he was raising objections with regards to questions on docket 375, saying that there has not been a decision made in terms of the NPA prosecuting that docket, saying that there is a letter saying that, we are awaiting the credibility findings of this particular trial before the NPA makes any decision on docket 375. So that sound clip was just the state prosecutor objecting to the line of questioning by Advocate Nshololo. But today we're going to see the re-examination of Madlala continuing by State Prosecutor George Baloyi. It's going to be interesting to see how he's going to try and perhaps salvage the testimony of Madlala in terms of his evidence in chief. We understand that he's not going to take too long with Madlala, meaning perhaps we may see an early adjournment. And if Baloyi does conclude with his re-examination today, then there is a very strong possibility that we will begin court proceedings next week with a new witness. But today's proceedings once more beginning at 10 a.m. this morning.
All right, we'll leave it there, and I appreciate you, of course, giving us this update. Colleague Silindelo Masikane after us in court, and we'll be sure to catch up with Slee as soon as there are other developments around the Meyiwa Murder Trial.